women work harder than men. According to Samantha Cameron, her husband, former Prime Minister David Cameron, loves employing women because they work harder.
In a new podcast, the businesswoman and wife spoke of his admiration, that's her husband's, for women's talents in the workplace and described them as perfectionists. Is it the case? Here's Michelle Morrison. OK, we're joined now by broadcaster Christo Fufas, who believes it's sexist to say women work harder than men, and businesswoman Geeta Sidhu-Rob, who says if she has a project-based job, she will always try to find a woman to do it. Welcome both.
Geeta, somebody would say that you're being quite sexist there, aren't you?
I think I'd say I was being really efficient. I'm a woman myself, so I know how hard I work. I know how hard the women around me work. And the way I put it is that if I need something done and I don't want someone to look at the clock to understand how much they're working and they just want to get it done incredibly well, I will always go to a woman, and it's never let me down. But if but where it's working with people where it's sort of a 9 to 10 job or a 9 to 7 job, I have phenomenal men that work for me, and I never think twice about hiring a man or a woman. It just is where there is some place where you know there's no clocking off. It's always going to be a woman. So
just explain to us in more detail, Geeta, which are the tasks that you would... Because you say you've got phenomenal men working for you, but which are the tasks that you would not choose a man to do?
So all the men in my company are going to be ringing me straight after this. So we run a health and wellness business. So the parts where we have juice shops and we have deliveries where we know that we've got a beginning and an end to something, that is always where it's men or it's women. Actually, that's where most of the men in my business work. Where it comes to the jobs where, like my COO, my logistics, where the client could be calling you at 11 o'clock at night or 4 in the morning, those jobs are always women, because there's never one time a woman's gone, you know, it wasn't my time to work. They will just do it.
So look, what you're saying is women don't have boundaries.
I'm not saying that,
they are working 24 hours a day. They're on call all the time. I mean, that doesn't sound like a good thing. That sounds like you're calling on the women outside of work hours because you know they're the ones who are going to be answering the phone.
No, I don't ask anyone to do what I'm not going to do. But the difference with that is that when the people that work in those jobs choose their times off, they choose when they're going to work, they choose when they're not going to work. And I absolutely trust them to do whatever it is they need. And we impose rules on making sure that they look after themselves. So I would hate to take advantage of anyone, man or a woman, because I work for myself. Why would I do that?
I just wonder whether, and we had an example of it this morning when Ranveer's phone went off, whether one of the reasons that women are perhaps constantly available is because they generally, and I'm not saying that men don't also do a good share of the childcare, but they generally are available because they're, for instance, worried about caring responsibilities, whether that's for parents or family members or children.
And Susanna, I really agree with you with that. And I think that's a large part of why we are the way we are. But on the other hand, in my business and in a lot of businesses today, nobody cares if my workers, whoever, my staff, anyone is going to go and hang out with their kids till 11 o'clock in the morning and then work from 11 to whatever time they finish. So I think if you are going to ask them to show up at the end, you let them do whatever they need in the morning. 9 to 5 is incredibly stupid for a woman. It just doesn't work for the way we have to look after my 3 children and my 87-year-old mum. It just doesn't. So why make people work like that? But I can trust them to do the job they're defined as their job. Okay. Does that make sense?
Well, let's ask Christo if that makes sense. Christo, so it seems that us men...
Shaking his head.
We can only work in a certain time frame. Come 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, once our shift is done, once our job is done, we're no good to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but am I in some sort of parallel universe at the moment where I was always under the impression that gross negative generalizations based on someone's sex or their race was being prejudiced? I'm sorry, this is absolute sexism. Geeta, I'm absolutely amazed to hear that there are jobs within your company that you will immediately just dismiss the skills of men, if it's the logistics-based or your chief operating officer, simply based on their sex. That is sexism. And I think that it's getting to the point now, I'm getting absolutely sick of this idea that we are going to solve the problems of prejudice, the sexism, the awful sexism that women have faced over the years, all of that awful sexism, we're going to we're going to have a problem with that. And we're
I think, Christo, do you need a woman to come in and sort out your computer?
Yeah,
is there a
sorry,
woman in the house that can come and sort that out?
What happened there. I'm so sorry. I have no idea what happened there. But the point I'm making is I do not believe that it is right that women, and that we're going to solve sexism by now having reverse sexism towards men.
Well, let's just put this to Geeta.
The thing about being so outraged, Crystal, is I really appreciate, half of me utterly empathises, because when you've been in a superior position and we force you into equality, you feel very oppressed. And the other half of me wants to give you a violin, because we've been working with this for years and decades and thousands of years. This is really unfair.
I'm sorry, the solution to your lack of fairness. The solution to your lack of fairness comes from trying to make an equal and level playing field for women. The solution to your lack of fairness is not hypocrisy.
I'm a brown single parent entrepreneur. I'm not trying to make anybody's level playing field. I'm trying to make my own and other people like me survive and succeed. I don't need to make you a level playing field.
So sexism is okay because of your background, which I admire greatly. You think then it's therefore correct. No, I'm paying you a compliment, but why does that make it okay for you then to be sexist towards other people? That is not an acceptable way of levelling the playing field. It makes you a hypocrite.
Christo, do you think that men and women are exactly the same? Because the fact of the matter is, I mean, for a start, they're not paid the same. There is wage inequality. There is also statistically, a greater domestic burden on women. And they may be, sorry, just let me finish. There may be things that men are better at that you would want men to do, and things that women are better at and you'd want women to do. We don't have exactly the same skills, responsibilities.
Some men, some women. I'm sorry, but we are all told constantly that language is really important when it comes to our conversations with people. And now we're making these gross generalisations. Some men might be brilliant at logistics, Geeta. Some men might be brilliant at being your chief operating officer. Some women might be better at the skills that we usually attribute towards some men.
Geeta, are there any jobs in your company that you would only offer out to men? That the men are better at those jobs that women are not?
Absolutely.
Like what jobs are those that women can't do?
Well, I mean, it's also really interesting that you have a man shouting at you because he's trying to prove a point about what he's trying to achieve. But in my company, the heavy things, the heavy lifting, that's always done by men because men are just stronger. You know, they're better at lifting this stuff. They really prefer it. We hire chefs, and actually all our chefs are men. I know wonderful, amazing women chefs, but in our environment, we hire only really men chefs. And we don't say we're only going to hire a man, we're only going to hire a woman. What happened is that over 13, so let me finish. Over 13 years, we've evolved to a place where we understand that certain sexes work better in certain positions. And I'm allowed to do that because I'm a results-based organisation, not a sexism-based organisation. And I don't have to prove diversity. I am diversity.
Christo, you get the last word.
I had no idea those were the rules now at a time where men don't know what they are in society, whether they need to be masculine, whether they need to be feelings-based, when we have a situation where male suicide is absolutely through the roof. Yes. We're now apparently allowed to discriminate against men. So those are brilliant. I didn't know those were the rules. When I have an organisation, I'll just decide that women don't work as hard and I'll just employ men instead. Oh, but hang on, that is sexist. And that is exactly what you've just admitted to, Geeta. I do not understand the difference between a male chef and a female chef, but you are making the decision that you want to only employ men in that situation. All of those gross negative generalisations are, I'm afraid, sexism. And that is something we have been told we're not allowed to do rightly anymore. And unfortunately, it makes you a hypocrite.
and it hasn't stopped anyone doing it over the last thousands of years. So it doesn't matter what you tell someone to do. Absolutely happens daily for women, every single day. So the fact that you think it's outrageous does not stop it happening. I just happen to be being open about the fact that I think that this is the way my company works better.
I think that perhaps a number of people will think you're reflecting reality, and a number of people will think you're enforcing and reinforcing gender stereotypes. Let's have a quick look at the poll. The question was specifically, do women work harder than men? And it remains stubbornly at 60% yes, 40% no. I mean, I think it's a little unfair, isn't it?
Well, we were talking about it off air or on air. I can't remember. But you guys, as being
territory.
But as parents, I think you've got a lot going on, and I agree with Geeta that I think there is a constant demand for your roles, and you have multiple roles. I think in life that yes, men do share some of the parenting. So I think that, but I think in the workplace, I think who can argue, you know, who works harder
I
than
think
anybody
everybody
else?
pulls their weight here, don't they?
So.
Male or female. I think it'd be rotten to say you don't work nearly as hard. Mind you do work fewer days, it has to be said.
You're a bit work-shy, to be fair.
Yeah. You here tomorrow?
What time are we finishing?